The sun beat down relentlessly on the dusty hills of Galilee, baking the earth until it cracked like an old potter's vessel. In this ancient land, boundaries were sacred. Stones were stacked to mark fields, and fences were built to keep predators at bay. But the most impenetrable walls were never made of stone or wood. They were constructed of pride, anger, and unforgiveness. This is a story of such a wall. It is the tale of two brothers, Elias and Jacob, who had forgotten the warmth of kinship, trading it for the cold, hard certainty of a grudge. They lived side by side, yet a chasm wider than the great sea stretched between their souls. However, this is also a story about a carpenter, not just any builder of tables and yokes, but the master craftsman of the human heart, Jesus of Nazareth. He wandered these dusty roads not just to heal the blind or cure the lame, but to tear down the bitter divides that separate us from one another, and ultimately from God. Where men sought to build walls of division, the Son of Man sought to mend the broken fences, transforming dead wood into bridges of grace. For generations, the fertile land bordering the silver waters of the local creek belonged to a single family. When their father passed away, the land was divided between Elias, the elder, and Jacob, the younger. At first, the brothers worked in harmony, their laughter echoing across the olive groves. But one terrible drought brought famine and desperation. A dispute arose over a narrow strip of grazing land near the water. Words, sharper than scythes, were exchanged. Accusations of theft and betrayal poisoned the air. The argument culminated in a fiery rage, and Elias, blinded by bitterness, swore he would never look upon his brother's face again. The very next day, Elias hired laborers to build a massive fence right down the property line. It was a jagged, ugly thing made of heavy timber and thick, intertwining thorn bushes. It stood 8 feet high, casting a long, dark shadow over the once beautiful valley. 5 years passed. The brothers lived merely a stone's throw apart, yet they lived in total silence. If Elias saw Jacob's children playing near the fence, he would turn his back. If Jacob saw Elias struggling with a heavy cart, he would look away. The physical fence had manifested a spiritual rot within them both. They were isolated, lonely, and deeply miserable, yet their stubborn pride acted as the mortar holding their self-made prisons together. The fence stood as a monument to their brokenness. One warm spring morning, a murmur swept through the valley. Jesus of Nazareth, the traveling rabbi whose teachings were turning Judea upside down, had arrived in their village. Crowds gathered to hear him speak of a kingdom built not on power, but on meekness. A kingdom where the first would be last, and enemies were to be loved. Elias watched the commotion from his porch. He noticed the rabbi separate from the crowd and walk quietly toward the fields, eventually resting beneath a large sycamore tree near Elias's property. Recognizing an opportunity, Elias approached the man. He had heard this Jesus was once a skilled carpenter by trade. "Teacher," Elias began, his voice rough from years of harshness, "I have a job for you if you still work with your hands. Look at that farm across the creek. That is my neighbor, a treacherous man. He has been grazing his sheep too close to my property line. I have a pile of fine cedar wood by my barn. While I go to the marketplace in the city today, I want you to build this fence 2 feet higher. I do not want to see his face, his house, or his land ever again." Jesus looked at the heavy, thorny barrier, and then at Elias's hardened, tired eyes. A gaze of profound sorrow and deep compassion washed over the master's face. "I see the divide," Jesus said softly, his voice like a cool breeze. "I will do a day's work for you. Show me the wood." Satisfied that his property would be completely sealed off, Elias departed for the city market, leaving the rabbi with his tools and a massive pile of freshly cut cedar logs. As soon as Elias's silhouette disappeared over the dusty hill, Jesus went to work. But he did not reach for the hammers and nails to build the fence higher. Instead, he approached the jagged wall of thorns and dead wood that separated the two brothers. With purposeful, strong hands, hands that had fashioned the universe, yet willingly accepted the splinters of a fallen world, Jesus began to dismantle the bitter divide. He tore down the rotting timber. He cleared away the suffocating thorns. Then, measuring the cedar wood Elias had left behind, Jesus began to measure, saw, and join the pieces. He worked tirelessly beneath the Middle Eastern sun, the rhythmic sound of his hammer echoing through the silent, fractured valley. Jacob, hearing the commotion from his side of the property, stepped out of his house. He watched in absolute astonishment as the towering wall of hatred was torn down. In its place, the strange carpenter was using the fresh cedar to construct something entirely different across the narrow creek that divided the properties. It was not a barrier. It was a bridge. It was sturdy, wide, and beautifully crafted, connecting the two lands as they were always meant to be. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant shades of gold and crimson, Elias returned from the city. He walked up the hill, expecting to see a towering wall blocking out his brother's farm. Instead, he dropped his heavy bags in the dirt. His breath caught in his throat. The fence was completely gone. In its place stood a magnificent wooden bridge arching gracefully over the creek. And there, walking across the bridge toward him, was his brother, Jacob. Jacob's eyes were brimming with tears. "Elias," Jacob wept, his voice trembling, "you had this built? After all the terrible things I said? After the years of silence? You built a bridge to welcome me back?" Elias stood paralyzed, his pride warring with the sudden, overwhelming ache in his chest. He looked at the bridge, and then he looked at the carpenter, who was quietly gathering his tools. Jesus met Elias's gaze, offering a gentle, knowing smile. Suddenly, the ice around Elias's heart shattered. He ran toward the bridge, meeting his brother in the middle. The two grown men embraced, weeping bitterly into each other's shoulders, 5 years of venom washing away in the waters of forgiveness. Jesus walked toward them, placing a hand on both their shoulders. "Blessed are the peacemakers," he whispered, "for they will be called children of God. A new command I give you, love one another. Let no fence remain where love is meant to dwell." Jesus departed the village the next morning, his face set toward Jerusalem, where he would soon use another piece of wood, a rugged cross, to bridge the ultimate divide between heaven and earth. But in the valley, the brothers' lives were forever changed. The thorny fence was never rebuilt. The cedar bridge remained for generations, becoming a gathering place for the families to share meals, laughter, and stories. The locals stopped calling it the property line. They began calling it the Carpenter's Grace. The story of Elias and Jacob spread throughout Galilee, a living testament to the rabbi from Nazareth. It served as a timeless reminder that while human hands are quick to build walls of anger, resentment, and isolation, the touch of the Master always seeks to mend the broken fences. Christ stands at the boundaries of our own hearts, holding the tools of grace and mercy. He asks us for our bitter wood and our thorny grudges, inviting us to surrender them. For he knows that the only way to truly heal a broken world is to turn our fences of division into bridges of unmerited love.